Hello, recyclers, scrappers, and investors. Welcome to Shark Scrapper Live, where we're talking about what's going on in the precious metals market, the industrial metals market, and stocks of companies that revolve around scrap and recycling and such. I hope everybody had a great week. I'm very excited to be here with you all. Looking forward to a lot of fun on today's live stream. Bush Dog and CU Scrapping, you guys were like tied coming in first here. I mean, you were almost at the exact same time. So I can't really say which one of you came in first, right? But welcome here, Electronic Scrapper. Welcome in. Great to have you all here. We are going to get right into things here. We're starting out talking about silver. So we're going to pop right over here to the silver world. So last week we talked about gold, and I was a little bit curious during the week if silver was going to do better. And the reason why I was kind of thinking that we could see some uptick in silver is because one of the first things that folks will do when they go into precious metals for their security is gold, right? So that's kind of like the first precious metal that people think of when they're a little bit nervous about what's happening with money and stuff. So they will put some money into gold. And then when gold starts getting a little bit too pricey, then they'll revert to silver. So silver is like, that second fiddle, if you will. So I was kind of expecting that we would see silver sort of pick up a little bit. So here we have the 24-hour silver. Not much goes on the weekends. We're down about 0.8%. No big deal. We go over here to the 3-day, and overall we're down 0.71, but it kind of looks worse than what it actually is. But that's because this scale here is, here's 25.5, and down here is 25.3. So not a whole lot of movement in the silver market. Let's look at the week. Not much going on there either, right? Down almost 1%. Some ups, some downs. Really not a whole lot. If we look at the month, it is up 8%. So this is nice. We like to see this if we're in the silver world. Of course, if you're buying silver, you don't like to see this, right? Isn't it one of those weird things? It's like, when you're in the market to be buying stuff, of course you want the prices low. And prices aren't bad for silver, even at 25. So it's if you're buying silver, it's a good time to be buying it, but it looks like it's kind of catching up a little bit. Then we go with the 3-month. And overall, it's up 4.6. But you can see that what happened was we had this dip from January into March, and then it's been picking up again. So what we're seeing is kind of hey, everyday solars, welcome to the crowd. What we're seeing is kind of what you kind of expect, right? In the U.S., they're talking about raising interest rates again. So people are going into precious metals for safety, and so we see the price of gold and silver going up, which is a good thing. And then here is our 1 year. Now here's that dip that we were just looking at. If you look at the 1 year, overall it's up 2%. But, look at what happened here. We started here. It's, kind of up. But there was a lot of ugly in between, wasn't there? And then if we look at the 5-year, here's this higher area out here. But probably the best way to see what silver is doing relative to gold is to look at the silver to gold or gold to silver ratio. So we're going to drop down here. We're on the 3-day. We drop down to the 3-day gold to silver ratio, and you can see that it's down. So that that tells you that you need fewer ounces of gold to get that ounce of fewer ounces of silver to get that ounce of gold. And then here we see not much, but down about 0.03, but really not a whole lot. I mean, this is one of those cases where you draw a line through the middle of this, and you've got ups and downs on either side of the line. So no big deal there. If we look at the 1 month, though, we see a steady decline in the gold to silver ratio. So what that is suggesting is that, yes, the price of silver is coming up. It is coming up with gold, following gold, and it's getting, look at that. Yeah, here's the 3 month, and you can see this gold to silver ratio is consistently dropping here. So that means it's taking fewer ounces of gold to get that ounce of silver, which means that investors are also buying up gold. So it is, it's silver is definitely catching up now with gold on the investors' horizon. More investors are buying silver, and it's all being driven by what's happening here with the U.S. Federal Reserve banking system. They have here. Let me read you this section out of the Value Line Investment Survey. They talk about the non-farm payrolls increased, the jobs slowed down a little bit. They've got the mixed signals that the Fed is dealing with as it's trying to, and a lot of people use this term, walk the tightrope against inflation. And so they got to be careful. If they raise the interest rates too much, then it can have, it can drive things into recession. It can cause trouble for banks. It causes trouble for home sales. Home sales are already dropping, but they have to keep raising it a little bit because inflation is kind of too high. So yeah, it's an interesting game that gets played. And of course, when all that goes on, it makes investors nervous. They don't know what to do. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on when we talk about the stocks, because we're going to see very clearly how this can impact some otherwise good dividend type stocks. So yeah, there's the silver is definitely following up on gold. It's getting there. If you are into buying silver, you probably still want to buy for a little bit. I will normally, if I'm buying gold, I'll still buy some when it's in the $25 range, but I start pulling back as it starts going over 25. Back when I was buying, I haven't been buying for a while. I've got plenty. I don't need any more. But back when I was actively purchasing, I would pull back a little bit when it was in that $25 to $30 range, because that's when I was starting to wait for it to get to my sell range of 40 to 50. So, Bush Dog is saying gold is, so Bush Dog is saying gold is 26. You know what? While we're here, we can take a quick look at gold. That's easy enough to do over here. Gold is 1,095 right now. So Bush Dog, you must be talking Canadian dollars, I'm assuming. So, hey, Mike, welcome to the crowd, man. Great to have you here. All right, so good. That we would expect this to happen with silver. It's good to see that happening. So we're all good there. All right. This is where I kind of the chat jumped here, and now I've got to find this one. Where did it go? Hello, Mike. Everybody's saying hello to Mike. Great to have you all here. Scrapping Irish, welcome. Great to have you here. All right, so our next item to talk about is safety. And up till now, I've been talking about specific kind of things that you should do to be safe. I want to talk about safety as more of a philosophical discussion for a minute here. A lot of people say things like, well, accidents just happen. And nothing could be further from the truth. Events happen all the time. Um, Everybody, I'm sure, is familiar with the discussion of chaos theory, that there's things that happen that make other things happen, and you can't control what's going to happen. And certainly, the environment that we operate in, things can happen that we don't have any control over. But the physical manifestation of the accident, the damage to the equipment, the people getting hurt, those kind of things, we do have a certain amount of control in. Now, I got to admit, when I first was introduced to this idea back when I was in the Navy, I had some issues with it too, right? Because I was one of these people who would say, "Look, accidents just happen. There's only so much you can do." Well, what I learned when I was in the Navy is that the physical manifestation of the accident is actually a result of either bad decisions or lack of decisions leading up to the event that takes place. Classic example, we see it a lot in the scrapping world, eye protection. You got to cut something off real quick. So you either consciously say to yourself, this is just going to be real quick. I'm not going to take the time to put on my safety glasses. Or you just don't even think about it. You just grab your grinder, you go to cut something off, and the disc shatters, and you get stuff in your eyes, and now you're going to the hospital, and you might be blind. So the idea that, well, it was just an accident, it just happened. Yeah, but you either made a conscious decision not to wear your safety goggles, or you just didn't think about it. And so the decision or the lack of the decision resulted in you being injured. You had no control on, probably had no control on that disc shattering, although even there, maybe you overused the disc, maybe you tweaked it too much rather than came in with a straight cut. There's some argument that maybe you as the person had some influence in that. But the fact that you were physically harmed when that disc shattered speaks to either a decision or a lack of decision that you made. So I would suggest, and I like to, when I talk about safety with people, what I like to say is it's the decisions that you make. There are too many things in the world that you can't control, but you can lower your risk and you can mitigate what could happen to you or your equipment by making some decisions ahead of time and just thinking from a safe perspective. If you're going to be using a power tool, put on your safety goggles as a minimum. If it's a loud tool, put on your hearing protection. If you're going to be out in the sun, you put a hat on. Those kind of things can mitigate the damage that can happen to all of us when accidents happen. Because stuff is going to happen out there. It's just going to happen. But what we do in the decisions we make can make all the difference in the world about whether or not we get hurt. Simple Man, welcome to the crowd. All right, now, aluminum. What is going on with aluminum? Aluminium. How many syllables can we fit into aluminium? Aluminum. Aluminum. We should have a contest to see how many syllables someone can fit into aluminum. All right, so let's pop on over to aluminum and take a look at what's going on over here. How do I make you go away? There you go. Go away. Go away, ad by Google. Shut up. We don't want to look at you. All right, so aluminum 24-hour spot price is down a little. Well, wait a minute. They're saying that says it's up a little, but that chart really looks like it's down a little. So well, that's kind of weird. I don't know why it's saying it. That's weird. Right there, it says it's up 0.0017. But unless there's a little bit of the line here that we can't see, from over here, that sure looks like that's down to me. But I don't get that excited about the about 24-hour pricing anyway. All right, sellers. Let's see. Aluminum. Did I get them all in there? Oh man. Well, Kevin, I'm glad your mom gave you permission to watch. We'll let her know if you get out of hand. Okay, so keep it under control, bud. All right, so 30-day we see aluminum is up a little bit here on the spot price. So that's kind of nice. We like to see the price going up. And on the 60-day, come on, clicker, do what you're supposed to do. On the 60-day, it looks like it's down a touch, right? We're going from here, we're down here. Wow, did I get a big enough line going there? So the 60-day looks like it's down a little bit. Our 6-month is up, so that's good. A nice long-term trend in the up direction is what we like to see, because as we have learned from folks like boardsort.com, a lot of their pricing is driven by long-term price changes. So they like to look at those longer-term trends as they being scrapyards and such. They like to look at those longer-term trends before they adjust their pricing. Oh, well, that's not good. We look at the 1 year and man, look at all this, right? We're crash and then we're up and then we're down, and hey, look, this is what happens, right? This is what goes on in the markets. So that's one of the things that I constantly have to remind folks that I talk to about scrapping and recycling business is you're in the commodities world. If you own a scrapyard, if you are big in recycling, you're playing the commodities game. So you're rolling with the way the commodity of aluminum is being used, and it's industrial, right? So it's driven by supply and demand more than the precious metals. Earl Fowler, welcome here. And then we see for the 5-year. We don't have a whole lot. Really, we see it's up some, right? So up from $1 a pound to $1.20-ish a pound or something like that. So overall, we just don't see a whole lot of movement in aluminum. There's goods and bads to there not being a whole lot of movement, right? Consistency is a nice thing when you're going to the yard and because we all tend to accumulate aluminum of some fashion. Sheet aluminum, dirty sheet, extruded, aluminum heat sinks. And, aluminum has been for a while now one of those things that you could kind of have a good feel for what to expect. The prices haven't changed as much as a lot of other metals that we bring in. Well, let's just go right down to the 5-year London Metal Exchange and take a look at why we don't see a whole lot of changing going on in aluminum. And this is our answer right here. What we see is that the London the Metal Exchange, factories, industry used up a lot of aluminum here in, what is that, early 2021. So, oops, wait a minute. I thought I had pushed the right button. So, the world starts opening up again. Aluminum is being consumed. We consume down to a very low level of the available aluminum. And now what we see is they're starting to build up the stock of aluminum again. This is even more clear if we go up here. Let's just go up real quick to the 1 year, and we can see here's that rise that we were just looking at. So if we look at the base of the base, if we connect the bottom of this pattern, we see that's going up. If we connect the tops, well, this is interesting right here. If you connect those tops, you see that it gets up to a certain level and then they burn it off, and it gets up to a certain level and then they burn it off. So it'll be interesting to see if the tops keep rising along with the bottoms. So we're seeing these bottoms rise. That means that they're trying to keep building up the inventory levels with aluminum. So as they continue to try to build up the aluminum levels, that sort of tamps down the price changes that you would expect to see. And aluminum, it's a necessary metal for the conversion to a greener economy, electrification of the world, because it is a strong, lightweight metal. And as they make vehicles and battery operated vehicles, they want them to weigh less so that you expend less energy moving them around. But a lot of car companies have already put a lot of aluminum in their cars. I think, one of the Ford truck bodies now is aluminum, right? So we are seeing that the aluminum consumption kind of is where it's at here. And as they build up the stocks, the pricing will remain relatively consistent. Bottom line for us as scrappers, wouldn't expect to see aluminum prices go through a lot of drastic increases. You might see it come up a little bit here or there, but overall, I would not expect to see anything really drastic with the aluminum prices anytime real soon. Of course, I would like your thoughts. So, as we go through these discussions, folks, go ahead, drop your comments on what you think is going on, why you think it's going in the directions that you expect it to go in, because, you guys see things that I may not see. And so we're here to learn from each other. So please make sure that, if you've seen something that is giving you a good idea of something that's going on, please share it with us so we can all benefit from it. And I'll be happy to put the comment up on the board for everybody to see. Now, what was interesting is while I was researching go over here. So while I was researching aluminum this week, I came across a couple of other interesting articles. Had nothing to do with aluminum, but when you're researching stuff, you wind up seeing a whole bunch of other things that pop up. So I wanted to share this one because I thought this was pretty cool. PepsiCo debuts sustainability initiative with a focus on aluminum recycling. We talked about Coke versus Pepsi last week in our stock discussions. And so, the name was interesting, but I thought it was interesting. Pepsi has this new program. They're calling it Pep Plus Partners for Tomorrow. This guy, Todd Squarick, Senior Vice President, Chief Sustainability Officer for PepsiCo Beverages in North America, had this in a press release. I think essentially what Pepsi is saying here is that they're going to be working with partners in making sure that the aluminum that they're using can be recycled faster and better. And what would be really interesting to me is if they make the decision to move away from plastic, especially plastic, and maybe even glass too, but you don't see a whole lot of glass bottles and jars in stores, a whole lot, some of the smaller sizes. The other interesting thing that I read in this article was, and I probably won't be able to find it right now while we're talking, but they talked about aluminum glasses, aluminum cups. So, that's kind of interesting too, right? Because, you go to a fast food place, you get a paper cup or a plastic cup. Now, a lot of times you're getting a plastic cup because, you're like, you go through the drive-through at a McDonald's or something like that. You end up getting a plastic cup for your drink. And what I wonder is if they could make aluminum cups that would be, because they're infinitely more recyclable than plastic, and it just comes down to how much they would cost. So I thought that was really fascinating. I'm sorry I can't find it in here. Oh, including the initiative will include several smaller programs, including on-demand collection of aluminum plastic. Oh, that's not what I was looking for. Oh, and reusable aluminum cups. Yeah, that was what I was looking for. Aluminum reusable cups, right there. So come on, Sharky, get with it, bud. Yeah, go on, man. So the aluminum reusable aluminum cups really got my attention. And I'm going to look some more into that because I think that's such a cool idea. So Russia-Ukraine war will have an impact later in the year on aluminum price. Why? Come on, Irish, you can't drop a comment like that and not tell us why. Come on, man. Spill the beans. All right, so the other article that I found that was really interesting, at least to me, was this: Chile plans to nationalize its lithium industry. I get it. I understand. Developing countries like Chile, they have high mineral worth, natural resource value, and their concern is that companies will come in, take all of the, in this case, lithium. They won't invest in the community, the people. And so then what happens is when the lithium runs out, the companies are gone and the country is poorer than it was before. Plus, they probably suffered a lot of environmental damage. I mean, this has been the history of the mining industry in the world for a long time. The companies come in, they take up all of the minerals, they pollute the environment of the area that they were mining, and then when the resource runs out or it's not economical to mine it anymore, they're gone. So there's a part of me that understands why a country like Chile wants to nationalize the lithium industry. Here's the problem that I have. Historically, whenever a country has nationalized an industry, it becomes rife for corruption and inefficiency. So I always get nervous when I see a country saying they're going to nationalize a particular industry. Like I said, there's a part of me that fully understands why Chile wants to do this. But there's another part of me that says that, man, they got to be so careful because they could have exactly the opposite effect if they don't manage that nationalization properly. You could wind up with a few people getting stinking rich because they're being corrupt either as politicians or as representatives of the country to the industry or within the industry. And then they would have the same problem, only it would be their own people doing it to themselves. So it will be interesting to see how this plays out. The article goes on to say that it has had no immediate impact on the price of lithium. And the companies that have been doing business in Chile are negotiating what that means for them and how they're going to handle things. So we'll see. We'll see how this plays out with lithium. But, what I'm hoping is that we'll also see a growing lithium recycling industry as well. Gets a little more difficult to recycle lithium, especially after the batteries have been cast into their various chemistries and forms. But I think we're gonna continue to see interesting stuff about the lithium industry. So we'll pay attention to that as well. And I'll see, maybe if I can find some good, consistent sources of lithium pricing information, we can start adding that to our discussion every week. All right, so Scrapping Irish has come in with his follow-up comment on why aluminum is going to go up. The U.S. is putting more tariffs on Russian aluminum. Yes, we are. Yeah, we talked about that, right? 2 weeks ago, I think. I don't remember, but yeah. So that's a good point, Irish. What'll happen as those tariffs take hold? It could have the potential to increase the price of aluminum. There's certainly plenty of other countries that are not imposing those tariffs. And so there'll be ways for aluminum, Russian aluminum, to get into the market. But the US tariffs, as we discussed, talk about not only primary aluminum, but anything made from secondary aluminum or aluminum content. They're going to have to prove that where it came from, and if it came from Russia, they're going to have to pay a high tariff on it. So yeah, Irish, you are absolutely correct. We should expect to see some impact on pricing from the tariffs. Now, how much of an impact and what that's going to do, we'll see. We'll see. Aluminum is one of those metals that is pretty prevalent in the Earth's crust. I think it's the most prevalent. The issue just comes down to how challenging it is to refine the aluminum, or extract it. So yeah, that'll be a good one to see how that plays out. Okay, so we have discussed silver and silver following gold. We've had our safety note for the day. We have had our discussion of aluminum. It is time for our business note of the week. Now, I'm going to say a 3-letter word that might as well be a 4-letter word. Taxes. Okay, it's a 5-letter word. Taxes. Tax is a 3-letter word. Really what I'm talking about here is sales tax. So I'm not talking about for my US listeners, I'm not talking about income tax. I'm talking about sales tax. Sales tax is one of those things that in one form or another exists pretty much every place out there. You might call it a value-added tax. You might call it a sales tax. Hey, Rafael, great to have you here, man. Thanks for coming in. So here in the U.S., most states have a sales tax. So when you buy something in the United States, there's a tax that goes on to the cost of the good. That tax goes to the state, and that's what helps to fund the state-funded infrastructure and services like police and fire department and those kind of things. Now, in addition to a state sales tax, counties and cities or local governments can also put a sales tax on something as well. Well, how is that tax collected? It's up to the merchant. Now, in my case, the way that affects me is when I sell something to a person at my facility in the state of Florida, I am required to collect sales tax for the state and the county. And they give me the formulas that I have to use to apply to, here's the price and here's the percentage that I apply. And then every quarter, in my case, every quarter I have to file a tax return where I tell them, here's how much stuff I sold, here's how much tax I collected, and I give that money to the state. That money is not mine. It's money that I collected on behalf of the state and the county to pay the tax. Here's where it gets interesting. If I'm selling goods to another business, I don't have to collect sales tax because there's no sales tax applied to it. So when I sell copper or aluminum to a local scrapyard, one of my local yards that I go to, they don't collect sales tax on me. When I buy from someone, that material that I'm buying is a good for me. It's goods, as in I'm not going to use that for something. I'm going to resell that something. I'm going to turn that into something. And so they do not have to collect sales tax for it. So it's really kind of funny because I have not so and so there's a certain amount of tactics involved in this, if you will. I have not sold anything to another Florida resident as something that they're going to keep and use. I have sold a bunch of stuff to Florida businesses that they are going to resell. It's a good to them. So I have not had to file or pay any sales tax on this material that I've sold. Every quarter, I have to go online, log into this online site. I tell them what my gross sales were. I tell them how much of that sales was tax exempt. And then I end up with a big fat goose egg for what I owe them to pay. It's a nuance, a good nuance of the business that I'm in, because I'm selling raw material to other scrap companies. So I'm not paying sales tax on them. Now, if I was to, say, sell a circuit board to someone that they're going to use for their personal computer, then if they're if they buy it in Florida, if they come to my shop and buy it, or I ship it to an address in Florida, then I have to collect sales tax for it. Now, whether I collect the sales tax or not doesn't matter. I still have to pay the state as if I had collected that sales tax. So that then becomes an issue when I'm selling things on eBay. Now, eBay has a tool to calculate taxes to help out with that, and they have some obligations that they have to report. But when people say to me, "Oh, you could have sold that for so much money," whatever, one of the considerations that I always have to take into account is the impact on sales tax. At the end of the day, it's kind of a no harm, no foul if I do it right. I add the sales tax on to what I charge the consumer, the customer, and then every quarter I give that back to the state. So it wasn't my money in the first place. But it does become interesting, and something that if you're doing this as a business, you need to pay attention, and it can get a little bit confusing. And the last thing that you want to do is get on the bad side of your state's tax people. They're perhaps not as well funded and aggressive and mean and nasty as the IRS, but boy howdy, they can get after you. And if they get after you, it can get ugly. So if you're doing this as a business, make sure that you understand the tax laws for your state, your county, your city, or if you're overseas, the same kind of thing where you're located. Make sure you understand the law with regard to how you have to handle taxes. Grass Cutter Palmer, welcome. Hey, Tim, how's it going? Great to have you here. Are there any of you out there that are doing this as a business that are paying sales tax? And how complicated have you found it to be? Now that I understand it, it's not as complicated, but it took me a bit of research when I first started this company to understand, what the ins and outs were going to be and what I had to do with regards to my sales taxes. So curious to see if any of the rest of you that are doing this as a business have tax issues that you have to deal with. Yeah, scrapping Irish, what's tax? Yeah, you guys don't pay any tax, do you? Oh, that's funny. Hey, speaking of things that are for sale, hang on a second. I want to see if I can do this. All right. So I don't know how many of you saw my short this last week, but I picked up this old Packard Bell, everyday solars. I know that you would call this a Packard Bell. Packard Bell? Did I say that right? Um, but this is a Packard Bell Legend 233. And it's actually in reasonably good condition. So you may recall last week or the week before, I was talking about the comments that I get from people who say, oh, you could have sold that computer for $100 non-functional, $400 if you knew it was working, that kind of stuff. So I put up that short. I'm going to put up a video, a little bit longer video this week with some more details on this. And I'm going to be putting it up on eBay because, hey, seriously, if there are vintage PC collectors out there that want to have something like this, I would much rather sell it to a vintage PC collector for to play with or to have in their collection or to use as parts for their other computers, rather than me just scrap it out, even though I know there's a nice 486 waiting inside of that thing for me. So this is a real nice computer. There's no rust on it. It was nice and clean. There's no dings, no dents. Hey, Andrew, great to see you. Hey, everybody, by the way, if you don't know this about Andrew, he's from New Zealand. So hey, y'all. Well, that was really weird. So I'm not sure exactly what happened there. As you can see, I had to shift to a backup camera here. So yeah, something went squirrely with my primary camera. I'm going to have to check what's going on there. So I apologize for that delay, for that technical delay there. Here, wait a minute. Let's see. Let's do this. Oh, there we go. That's a little bit better. So I got to figure out why the other camera went down, but hopefully we should be back up. So let me know if you can see and hear me now. It looks like you can see me but let me know if you can hear and see me. So I'm going to wait for some comments here to see if you can hear and see me. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Okay, Roger says loud and clear. Okay, cool. All right. Well, that was really weird. I don't know what went on there. Very, very strange. Let's go ahead and get back with this and this and this. Well, I tell you, this is one of the things I like about StreamYard, right? It kept the broadcast open. I was able to troubleshoot and get right back into it. So that's one of the values of StreamYard, right? Anyway, we were talking about this really cool PC that I found, this Packard Bell Legend 233. It's in relatively good condition. Certainly if any of you are interested in it, please let me know. I would be happy to discuss, selling it to you. I'll be putting it up on eBay this week. And, hopefully it's not one of my fellow Floridians that buys it and I have to pay sales tax on it. All right. Well, so man, that was really weird. I'm going to have to figure out what's going on with the other camera show. It's probably something, simple, stupid that I did with the other camera. So we're going to have to get that one figured out. Anyway, it's time now to get into our stock discussion. And the companies that I want to talk about this week, because we have we're back to issue 11 on our value line stocks. And the last time that we were in issue 11, we talked about, let's see, it was Walgreens Boots and Best Buy. They are still good companies. You can see that the Best Buy is still a div 0, still a good yield. Walgreens still doing fine, still a div 0, 5+%. So rather than just regurgitate the companies that we already talked about from a week ago, I wanted to dive into something a little bit different. And this is where talking about what's going on with interest rates is really important. Avista and the other two companies we're going to talk about are electric utility companies out in the western United States. Utility companies in the United States have historically been good defensive companies to invest in. They tend to be regulated industries, so there's consistent income and they can pay reasonable dividends on a consistent basis. So the good and the bad is, the good is they historically pay reasonable interest rates on a consistent basis. The bad is because they're regulated, they don't have as much flexibility to deal with things like supply shortages, rate hikes that affect the interest rates on the money that they're borrowing and that kind of stuff. So I thought it would be interesting to talk about these guys a little bit. So we're starting out right here with Avista. Avista is 4.2%, and that's as of the 21st of April, and that's on $44.02. So here's where you got to kind of ask yourself, though. It's like, well, 4.2%. But with the Fed raising interest rates, there's actually some money market and other kind of things that the bank might be able to give you that could pay you more. Now, you got to be careful to see if you're qualified. I mean, the banks certainly advertise a lot of these great, things. You can get a certificate of deposit for, this ridiculous number, but there's so many caveats, and you got to put in so much money, and you got to have it in there for so long that you're taking some risk there. So one of the things that I like about utility stocks is if they're paying 4% or more, I know that's going to be a consistent
payout for me, even when the rates go up and the rates go down and things like that. So we can see here that Avista is a div zero, so 17 years of increasing dividends per share across the board, which is what we are looking for. And this is what they look like graphically. The gold line is their dividend, nice upward trend. Here you can see they took some hits because of supply chain related issues for COVID, but they're slowly digging out of that. The other interesting company, it's a name that I'm sure folks are going to like. It's called Edison, but Edison International, 4% yield on $72.84. So the buy-in is a little higher and you're not getting quite as much money. They are a div zero. So right over here, they are a div zero. So why would you consider Edison over Avista? Edison is Southern California. And, even though we hear all the time about people leaving California, there's a lot of people in Southern California. So there's a lot of people buying their energy from Edison. They're not going downhill anytime soon, trust me. Whereas Avista is up in Washington State. So they have a little bit, they have a little bit different economics that they're working on. And then the third company that we'll compare all of them to is called Northwestern Energy. Northwestern Energy is paying 4.2%. And that's on a $60.83. So they're kind of like, in between the Avista and Edison, paying, the higher rate that Avista is. Northwestern Corporation is doing business. It supplies electricity and gas in the upper Midwest and Northwest. So they cover a bunch of states and a bunch of areas. So they have a kind of a more of a distribution, if you will. It diversifies their customer base, plus they're doing electricity and gas. So they are a div zero, so 17 years of increasing dividends per share. They're not qualified on cash flow or earnings per share. You don't expect utilities to be qualified that way. But if we look at them graphically, we can see a relatively nice, smooth, consistent increase in their dividends per share, which is what you expect from utilities in the United States. And then not as much churn here on their earnings per share and their cash flow per share. So they're kind of a more stable player. And I think it's because of their geographic diversity allows them to have a little bit more stable kind of funding and such. So, if you're looking to bring in some defensive stocks, some consistent dividend earners, utilities are generally a good place to look. And this company here, Northwest Energy, would be a good company to look at. I do not own any shares in Northwest, and I am not planning on acquiring any in the near future. And of course, as I have to reinforce every time we talk about this, I am not a licensed financial planner or advisor. This is just, I share what I look at when I'm looking at stocks and industries, and I share that with you for your education and entertainment as well. If you're going to make any investments in these kind of businesses, you definitely want to do the additional research on your own. But having said that, I am happy to provide additional information from my source, Investment Line Survey. As you all know, they do not accept any advertising. It's just straight data and analysis of the data. That's what I like about them. That's why I don't mind paying the money that they charge me to get this information. And I would be happy to share that with you all if you want to send me questions to sharkscrapper@gmail.com. If you are a Patreon member and you want me to analyze any of the companies that are out there, if they're in the investment line survey, I'll be happy to do that as one of our weekly Wednesday patron only videos that I share with you all. All right, everybody. It has been a fantastic, if not rocky, kind of live stream. I'm going to have to figure out what's going on with that camera. Oh, Roger. Yeah, I just say, I got to tell you. All right, so I got to share this story. Back when I was in the Navy, I was involved in a project where we were testing out some new command and control programs. We're in a briefing, and the big head people are, explaining some stuff to the admiral, and the admiral had a pretty. This was the admiral I was working for at the time, and I knew he had a relatively good sense of humor. And he had commented to me a number of times about how sometimes these meetings would want to make his head explode. So as I could tell that the admiral was starting to kind of fade out and lose what was going on. I mean, it had been a long week, and we were all really beat. So I came in the conversation and I spouted off some techno jargon BS. And then I said, but Admiral, as you know, I am not a computer analyst, but we did say at Holiday Inn last night. So fortunately, he saw the humor in it, and I did not get fired. Kevin, what is going on here? Wait a minute. So Kevin, I caught my son chewing on a power cord. I had to ground him. Oh, shocking behavior. Oh man. Hey, Irish, are you ready for me to send these folks over to you? Remember that I have redirect set up on this live stream. So if you have autoplay enabled, when I shut the stream down, it will take you right over to Scrapping Irish's live stream. And hopefully he will not have camera problems on his end. And hopefully sometime during that stream, I'll have figured out what happened to my camera and I can explain that. I think I know, but I want to check before we talk about what happened. So Irish, I'm hanging on here. Are you ready? You're okay. All right. So Scrapping Irish is ready to take everybody on board. So I am going to end this stream just a little bit early. I will see you all over on Scrapping Irish's stream. If we don't see you over there, have a great, wonderful week. We'll see you somewhere during the week, or failing that, I will see you Sunday at 2 p.m. to talk about precious metals, industrial metals, and the stocks that we invest in. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you over in Ireland.